listening to the Betmaker Show. This is the Week 12 preview for November 18th, 2019. And now, live from Las Vegas, the host of the Betmaker Show, Brian Blessing.
All right, here we go, folks. Another week. I mean, we have literally turned the corner for home in the football season, both NFL and college football. And our focus here on a brand new Monday is the opening numbers for the NFL. Brian Blessing, glad to be with you in Las Vegas. As always, we turn to our go-to guy, one of the premier odds makers on the globe, our good friend Jack, who's checking in as we kind of recap the weekend. I'm glancing at it, Jack. A couple things for me, bud. Baltimore. Yikes. Maybe how good are these guys? And then what are you guys thinking about Atlanta now? Because out of nowhere, they look like a football team. They look like a good football team.
They're rejuvenated. They are. They were the expected 500 or maybe a little better from them before the season began. They got off to that rocky start, got to the bye week and straightened themselves out somehow, probably saving the coach's job for at least now. And they're favored this week, and we'll see what happens. Baltimore looks like a juggernaut, and Jackson's playing superbly. The defense is improving, especially since Smith came back at cornerback. Both teams are playing excellent right now. Baltimore's been excellent most of the year, maybe stubbing their toe once in that Cleveland game.
And real quick, one more overview thing. Okay, Saints bounce back. I mean, you got to maybe give Atlanta a bit of credit. Indy thumped Jacksonville. The Foles thing didn't work. But the one that's a constant and just remains a mystery, they won the football game and they covered. But this Rams team is still this massive mystery to me. Gurley can run the football. It's like they just refuse to run. 1 week to the next, I don't know. What have you done with them from a power rating perspective? From day one to now, how much of the Rams dropped?
Well, let's look at it this way, and we'll talk about it later in the show, I'm sure, but Baltimore is at the Rams this week, and before the season started, you would have had the Rams 5 or 6, and right now, Baltimore's sitting at 3.5.
It is amazing. All right, well, that's a good segue into what lies ahead. Before we get to next week, we have a Monday night football game, and we're seeing money on the Chiefs. 5-point favorite at the Chargers, totals 53. We've had the discussion, Jack, on several occasions this year that Rivers seems to be getting old right in front of your eyes. That being said, I think Gordon's found a groove, so they should have a decent running game. And honestly, a division home dog, and we know what Mahomes brings to the table, and Hill back, they're electric. But Kansas City can't run the football, and it seems like maybe the Chargers can now, which I think could moderately level the playing field in this game. But we're sitting at 5-53. 5's a dead zone. Do you see any movement here on game day?
It's gone up. We were as low as 3.5 earlier in the week. And I think one of the points to take is, yes, it is a Chargers home game, but it's in Mexico City, and I really don't know who the more popular team is.
Thank you for that. Yes, it is a Mexico City thing. Okay, well, thin air. Rivers might not make it through the third quarter then.
It's like you were setting it's like you were setting him up for an old man Rivers joke, but
oh, brother. Well, and the one thing is you never know. Honestly, I guess we're all in the same boat. You never know what that playing field's going to be like.
No. They've had I know there's been basketball games scheduled down there that didn't take place. And wasn't there some controversy with the football field a few years ago?
They canceled it.
Right.
They had to move it. They canceled. It was a Raiders game, I believe, wasn't it? And they had to cancel it. The field was no good.
Hopefully they've learned their lesson.
Yeah, you would think the NFL's invested a lot of energy into that. All right, let's go. This coming week, Indy at Houston. Give me the thoughts heading into the weekend and how it may have changed because, came up with a lot of good ideas for the weekend. I'll tell you one that was really flawed. I said this, maybe Houston's not getting any respect. 9-game winning streak, and the teams they lost to were good teams. They got taken to the woodshed.
Which I think just reinforces our point about Baltimore rather than downgrading Houston. But in this game, Indianapolis at Houston on Thursday night. On Saturday, we opened Houston 6 and 46.5. Right now, the game is 4. There's a couple 3.5s out there. Total 45.5. And as you said, I'm going to disregard the Houston effort yesterday. I'm going to say they get off on a bad foot, and the snowball just kept rolling downhill. Indianapolis played better than I thought they would against Jacksonville. I thought Jacksonville had a chance yesterday. Brissett has played very well with this team. This is a team that, as we've talked about a few times, could have a much better record. I anticipate it just staying around 4. I don't see much movement there.
The one thing is, one of the absolute games of the week, these two teams at 6-4 tied atop the AFC South.
Right, 6-4. And as I said, it'd be easy for Indianapolis to have at least a game lead. But playing for first place, I think you have the 3 or so points for home field. And I think Houston might be just a shade better.
All right, Miami's at Cleveland. Cleveland laying 10.5 total on the game. At least what I'm seeing is a consensus, and the total's in the mid-40s. What's the thought process here, Jack? The one thing we should note is Cleveland does get extra time to prepare, but I'm wondering if that game against Pittsburgh was more putting lipstick on a pig. I don't know. I'm still not buying Cleveland. They think they can go on a run, but that seems like a pretty dysfunctional group, and then we know what happened with Garrett. I don't know. Are they a mad football team, or are they just a mess?
Well, I think what would have been a great, very good victory for them was turned around by the actions with the fracas at the end of the game. And now they'll be minus at least 2 players for this game. I guess the NFL is still reviewing it. But Miami put up a pitiful show yesterday against Buffalo. You had the winner in the total on the side and the total there. But anyway, Cleveland opened 12.5 with the knowledge of the suspensions. Now it's sitting at 11. I see 10.5s out there. It's just an odd game. I mean, Miami a few weeks ago on a Thursday night, I believe it was, Monday, went into Pittsburgh and played a respectable game. I don't know if they can do it again. I would pass this game entirely. I really have. If I had to predict, I would say this game may come down just a little.
All right, and let's go on to Denver at Buffalo. And you alluded to the total last week. I thought was really low, considering the first game they played, it went over in windy conditions, and Buffalo goes down to Miami, and it's always kind of a get-well moment for the Bills down there. But I would not be overreacting to it, and I think the oddsmaker's done a really good job here. And Denver's offense actually was pretty serviceable, but look at the total here, 36.5 is kind of a consensus. And the one thing I would throw out there, Buffalo's got Dallas coming up on Thanksgiving Day. Their only national TV, well, I shouldn't say that. They got moved. Their Patriots game got moved to a Saturday. Nonetheless, this is a game the Bills need to build that cushion. They're in the cookie jar to make the wild card. But if a loss here, makes it dicey. But I think the odds makers tell me the process on the total. Weather's a thing you got to consider too. I'm on board with the really low total here.
Right. We opened this game. We opened 5 and 35. Right now we're at 4.5 and 36.5. And it's one again. It's how do you grade a game? Yesterday's Buffalo Miami game. I just think I didn't upgrade Buffalo as much as I downgraded Miami again. If I could take them any lower, Denver played a remarkably good game against Minnesota. They made it for the players, blowing that lead and giving Minnesota the win on the teasers. It was Denver, I think, is alive in this game. The absence of Flacco has proved not to be worth anything at all. And I think Buffalo might have their hands full. Tough game. Buffalo probably squeak it out, but I could see this number going down.
Jack, I think you just brought up a really, really interesting point, and this is why we love having you on. But the thought process of people that do this for a living and are firmly invested in it. How many times do you see, the polls in college football? Number 10 is playing number 3. Number 10 could be a 4-point favorite,
right.
And so what I'm saying here is, and it wouldn't shock me if you did. Okay, the Bills, pounded Miami. Okay, it was a one-off. It's just a game. Nothing changed. Denver loses to Minnesota. You could actually make the case to upgrade Denver the way they played in defeat. Is that fair?
I think that's accurately assessed right there. I think that's what really happened, and I think it'll be indicated by this game going down to 4.
All right. I mean, the odds makers are no dummies, folks. I mean, they know what they're doing. Pittsburgh, Cincinnati. Pittsburgh extra time to prepare. Cincinnati showed some fight against the Raiders, Jack, but boy, they're offensively challenged.
They are. I thought, I believe the new young quarterback, I think his name is Franklin, I think he's coming along, and I think it's the right move to get him some experience. But defensively, they're no bargain either. They're giving up close to 400 yards a game. They're going to have their hands full here. The only thing with the Pittsburgh game, again, they're getting a little punishment for that thing. You have Schuster in the concussion protocol. You have Pouncey suspended. You have the defensive lineman Tuitt is out for the year, aside from the injuries they had before that. For Cincinnati, there's no indication that Green is coming back yet. John Ross, the receiver, got hurt yesterday on a nice catch towards the end of the game. It's like this game is probably 7, and now it might have been, with everybody in, it might have been 10, everybody out at 7, and I think it'll go down to 6.5.
Hey, Jack, I have a hard time remembering what day of the week it is. Ryan Finley, right? The young
Finley, right. I'm sorry.
The young QB. Now, talk to me about this game, because I don't know what the thought process would be as you guys do the huddle up and then hang a number. The Giants at Chicago, you had an idea, then you had to wait and see the Sunday night game. We know kind of what the Giants are, but at the end of the Chicago game, Trubisky got the hook, and he had this forlorn look on his face, and all the talk is that this may be the kind of the death knell, that they're moving on from the guy. Every graphic they show the Bears traded up to get him, and they passed on Mahomes, and they passed on this one, and they passed on that one. They passed. Trubisky went ahead. That it tells you the draft is an inexact science. Trubisky goes ahead of Mahomes and Deshaun Watson. But what are you thinking at the quarterback position here?
Well, aside from he was yanked. A, they were ineffective. B, I think he hurt his knee a little. I guess he's questionable for this Sunday. But if he doesn't play, then Chase Daniel comes in, and there's
not much drop-off,
There's not much drop-off. Before the year started, I would have said it was a tremendous drop-off. Now it's none at all. So we opened this game 7-41. We're at 6.5 and 40.5. And if Trubisky plays, I think it goes maybe back to 7. And if he doesn't, it stays around 6.5.
All right, then we go to Oakland at the Jets, and I find this game pretty intriguing. All of a sudden, Gruden's doing a great job. Raiders finding a way. Really favorable schedule. They are knee-deep in the playoff discussion. But now you're flying cross country, and you're playing that, for them, a breakfast football game on their body clock, and now you have the weight of expectations. Yikes. And the Jets last 2 weeks look pretty good. It could be a banana peel spot for the Raiders. What did you come up with in terms of all those things for this game?
Well, we opened this game 3.5. The bettors took it down to 3 this morning. We opened at 3.5, 47. We're now at 3 minus a little money and 46.5. You make all the good points for the case for the Jets. I still think there's a gap in talent. Oakland didn't play that well yesterday. They put up offensive numbers, but they just didn't convert it into points. I would be inclined to think that this game drops down to maybe a 3 flat and stays there till kickoff.
And just listening to you talk, sometimes, good football teams, you don't play your best, but you still win. I mean, it's survive and advance, and that game's in the rearview mirror. So even though it wasn't pretty, for Oakland, they get the job done. And at the end of the day, it's all that matters.
That's right. They got the job done. And I'm sure they weren't psyched up for a Cincinnati team that they were pretty sure they could handle when they walked in there.
Betmaker, let's make some money tonight.
For outstanding information and special offerings and promotions, we invite you and encourage you to sign up for our newsletter today simply by going to the website at betmaker.com. Carolina at New Orleans, and this is another one where, the Saints had the one-off, got mauled by Atlanta, but they bounced back in a big way. But all of a sudden, what was, just kind of like they were dancing down the yellow brick road. Hey, look at this. We got a quarterback, and Carolina's fallen on hard times the last couple of weeks. And I wonder how you treat it. The funny thing is, Jack, that's what goes on in the NFL. Guys can come out and wow you for a bit. I always remember the Wildcat Remember that with Miami when they came out that one year? And they're running down people's throats. That lasted 5 weeks. The minute teams got film on it, it was over. And I think that might be the case with this Allen kid in Carolina. They're like, look, yeah, McCaffrey ain't beating us. We dare that kid to beat us, and it ain't working.
No, you're right. Basically, that's it. And these are the two victims of the newly improved Atlanta Falcons, as we talked about. They came out after the bye. They beat Carolina, and they beat New Orleans. Now, New Orleans, we opened this game 7-48. After yesterday's performances, we're sitting at 10-dog money, which is probably converts to maybe a 9.5 for a universal number. And the total is 47. I still don't think Breeze is 100%. I mean, some of those throws, he reminds me of Manning towards the end. Maybe not the last year, but when he was still putting up numbers, but with soft tosses. And I think it's got to catch up to him one of these weeks. I don't know if this is the week, but I think this game comes back to 9.5 flat. And the total, they've been betting New Orleans games. They bet it over yesterday. I think they got a lucky 51. They'll probably bet this game over, but we'll see what happens.
You know, you may be spot on with it. I would just throw this one other little caveat in there, and I don't know that maybe you guys take such a thing into account. I think Breeze, as most quarterbacks are, although this guy's been around the block so much, you know, there's a home-road dichotomy. The guy's much better at home. But you know what? I wonder, Jack, I think he's so much better on turf. You know, that sometimes when these games are played on the grass, I think collectively the whole offense, it doesn't completely shut down. I think it bogs down. It slows down to a degree. Do you take grass and turf into account when you're hanging a number?
We always have. No, I think you're right. You're right about that. New Orleans has always been much better on a faster surface, and they always will be. For some reason, they're geared that way. So yes, we do take that into account.
Well, talk about the fast surface. Let the track meet begin, I think. Tampa Bay and Atlanta. What was the thought process here?
We opened Atlanta 2.5 after yesterday's performances. There was bet up to 4. I see some 4.5 out there. The total, we opened 54.5. That's down to 52, which once you get over 51, there's always smart money under. And if it's two teams like this, the anticipation is it will be a high-paid game. But really, there's only so many points you can get in 60 minutes of football with X amount of plays.
That's a great point. That being said, to me, the smart opinion was the opening number because you got Winston. They can go up and down the field, but he makes 3 incredible box of rocks throws. You know, I mean, the thing is, he never does it in the red zone going in. He always does it in his own end,
right?
You know, and it's points.
He's an offensive machine for sure. And one announcer made a good point yesterday. He did say he's never seen a guy throw more freakish interceptions where a ball is tipped, or yesterday when the guy's trying to juggle it and catch it behind his back and it just stays up in the air for the interception. He's been bad luck like that, really. And he's a very talented quarterback, but the turnovers will be there, and that's why the totals are always high with him.
Heck, Detroit's at Washington, my friend, and I think we have a new worst team in football in play here.
I don't know. I guess Washington is worse than Miami. They did beat them. We have to acknowledge that, but they had to hold on and hold off a 2-point conversion.
But Haskins looks lost, doesn't he?
He's still a good college quarterback. Unfortunately, we're playing in the pros. He seems befuddled when he's back there. I guess they're trying to get him the experience. I think it's going to be costly, although it may help them in the draft situation. But anyway, Detroit they'll be without Stafford for a few weeks, I believe. This game, we opened 2, and after yesterday, we're up to 3.5. The total remained the same at 42, but Washington, as you said, the difference is Haskins. If Keenum was the quarterback, I think Washington's the favorite.
Okay, I kind of get this one. Jacksonville, Tennessee, and as we've been doing this podcast with you all year long, with a slight exception here and there, we said any AFC South game, you could probably, it's almost like the Ravens and Steelers for a decade. Any AFC South game, hang the home team 3 and get on with it. But I'm curious, it's been a volatile era here. The last 2.5 years were based on 1 week's result to the next, that numbers shift. And Jacksonville was kind of a no-show. What was the talk here on the Jacksonville at Tennessee?
Well, we opened it at 3 flat, and we're at 3 right now. Favorite, a small favorite, -3. And Tennessee is coming off a bye, which is a plus for them. Jacksonville didn't look that good yesterday. The quarterback changes you mentioned before didn't seem to be the answer. If anything, I think this game goes up. Tennessee was, when they played Kansas City, they were a 3.5-point dog, I believe, or 4. And Kansas City's a much better team than Jacksonville. So I anticipate this game going to perhaps 3.5.
No, exactly. But I guess, and maybe it's an even broader discussion that you can help us with. Generally speaking, because I just the way Jacksonville looked, and you mentioned Tennessee extra time to prepare. Tannehill's playing at a pretty good level. I would have thought it was a number that would go up. But when you said earlier in a couple of games, professional money quickly brought this number down to a key number. It's sitting on a key number. Generally, sharps won't let it go through or make it go through a key number, right? They'll let the general public do and take it back. Is that what is basically what's going to happen during the week?
Right. That's but generally the smart guys are reacting to public money unless the number is way off to begin with.
All right, then we have a monster game, Dallas and New England. New England, both of these teams, Jack, really good teams. But I think, listen, New England gets it done mostly because of the defense. But Wentz was inept. It was bizarre yesterday. That was a weird game. I still think New England's really, really good. I just think they're flawed in the red zone, and they cannot run the football. And Dallas is kind of a roller coaster ride. What do you got here?
Well, as you're talking about New England, I was struck by it yesterday. Normally, New England would be so effective that they could use a trick play and it would work. Now, and yesterday, the problem was they did a trick play and it worked, but it's because they're so ineffective now down there.
Yes.
So it's been a total reversal. But this team, they managed to win. Belichick always has them ready to do whatever they have to do. But I think this is a big number against a very talented Dallas team. I would anticipate when they played Cleveland, there was a lot of money for Cleveland, and the number came down. Now that was over a touchdown, and it went down to maybe around 7. I think this game comes down. I wouldn't be surprised to see this come down to 4.5 or 4.
Wow, and the total in the 46 range. Again, you really got to check the forecast because we know what it can be like at Foxborough. This is like a weird one, though. They're good defenses. Something tells me these guys kind of go up and down the field. I think Prescott can make some big plays, but I also think Prescott can turn the ball over against these guys. It's an interesting game. I just don't. It's hard to trust either one of them, especially in relation to the number.
It is. And they've bet New England under basically all season now. We've usually opened the totals higher because historically, even when New England had a big lead, they would press it and score at the end. They haven't gotten that big lead. They fought. They covered yesterday, but that was really anybody's games. Now, on the other hand, you have Dallas, who's improving. As you said, they still do some turnovers, but Prescott's only turned it over 4 times in the last – or not necessarily him, but the team has turned it over 4 times in the last 3 games. New England's strength is the takeaway. So if Dallas can hold the takeaways down, which there's no guarantee they will, I think they could actually win this game. But saying they give the turnover or 2, I think it's a decent number. As I said, it comes down to 4.5. But I look for a great effort from Dallas.
All right, this is going to be a good one, Jack. Green Bay, San Fran. Looking like we're living on a key number here. Green Bay, extra time to prepare. Arizona, the 2 games with San Fran, made them work for it. I wonder how much. I mean, that was, gritty. San Fran comes back and wins, but you wonder how much energy they expended in that game with Green Bay coming in fresh as a daisy. Good Sunday night game.
It really is. So we opened this game San Francisco 4-44. Now it's 3 minus money on San Francisco and 46.5. I think the total goes up. Frisco's last couple games, they've been giving up more points, and the Garoppolo has been forced to score a few more points. Arizona team was very scrappy against them yesterday. They blew a 16-0 lead. The game was closer than the final score because of the last touchdown with the laterals and et cetera. But I think San Francisco might be primed to play a Sunday night game, put on a better performance than they did against Seattle, better than they did on that Monday night game against Arizona. And I think San Francisco, I think there'll be some money for Frisco at the end. Game closes 3.5 and 47.
From an individual player's perspective, Jack, in terms of a power rating or what he's worth to the number, clearly it's a function who you're going against, and it was Arizona, so take it with a grain of salt. This is a San Francisco team. When they win, they step on teams' necks, and they run the ball down their throat. They were shorthanded yesterday. Breida didn't play, but they had to go through the air, and Garoppolo was able to pull it off. We do see games where good defenses, he gets frustrated and maybe makes a couple of squirrely throws. But I wonder how big a boost to his confidence that he was. There was a game where he had to bring them back to win, and he did it.
I think that has to buoy his confidence quite a bit. I after the last few with the number of turnovers, I think he may have been a little shaken. He made the big play yesterday. But he also, remember, they were down there threatening in the third quarter. He threw that interception. He threw another one, tip pass for an interception. His confidence may have grown, but it's not at 100% yet. And now he's matched up against Rodgers. But I think the Green Bay defense, when you compare it to the San Francisco defense, will be the difference in the ballgame. I think Frisco can make Rodgers battle for everything. I think the San Francisco offense will be able to exploit the Green Bay defense.
Again, the odds makers know what they're doing. I believe, I know, but I believe you nailed it here, and I think it's an indication of why the odds makers know what they're doing. Seattle is at Philly, and Philly's offensive ineptitude yesterday. I look at the total and go, job well done, boys. I mean, the total's where it should be. That New England defense is pretty special. The total's what catches my eye here, Jack. But tell me about Seattle and Philly.
We opened Philadelphia 3-49. We're down to 2-49, and I think the players have the right idea. Seattle is coming off the bye week. Philadelphia had a real tough game yesterday. Very important. Seattle's, I believe, what are they? One game behind San Francisco in their division.
Yep. They're breathing.
And Philadelphia, they need with the possibility of a Dallas loss here. This will become a very important game for them because Philly can't absorb too many more losses. But as you said, Wentz was not at his best yesterday. Russell Wilson is usually at his best, and tough game. I mean, it could be anywhere from pick to 3, so we settled on right now we're at a 2, and I think it's a fair number.
Yeah, I mean, when two things collide, something's got to give. And it to me, the overriding thing I believe is Seattle can score, but Seattle can't stop anybody. And you nailed the total.
Right. Now, yesterday, if you saw New England, every time Wentz tried to make a pass, he was trying to squeeze it into basically a covered guy. I don't think he could have more opportunities against Seattle.
And then we wrap it up Monday night, Baltimore and the Rams. Now, I would say this, the total, again, is what kind of catches my eye, but give me the lowdown on Baltimore and the Rams.
Baltimore and the Rams, we opened this game when we opened Saturday morning. This game was Baltimore 1-49. Right now, it's 3.5 dog money and 47. The way the Rams played yesterday, Baltimore is basically an over team. The Rams played yesterday, they've become an under team. They're playing good defense. And as you talked about earlier in the show, for the first time, they actually ran more than they passed. And Gurley had some success, but the 6-man front, as they talked about all night on the broadcast, has given the Rams fits. And the only way to attack it is to throw more. And McVay seems to have gone backwards, where I'll run into it still, and it's not successful. Chicago's not even the best defense there is. They're formidable, but they're not the best. The Baltimore defense is a little better. The Rams are going to have a tough time, and Jackson really could be the factor here, and I think this game ends up around 4.
All right, and wrap it up with this. And this is just me. I mean, I've been throwing rose petals at your feet this entire podcast, Jack, because you deserve them. But the one thing I've always taken issue with, to a degree, that special teams are not taken into account or factored into a wagering line. If a team is always good in special teams, they're winning the field position battle, it actually factors in. I mean, I know there's only so much stuff, and then you put numbers up, it's a market number, and you're going to be right about there. The one other one that it's not an intangible, I think it's a critical thing. And honest to God, if you ask me, the key to this game, it's one guy. It's Wade Phillips. It's the defensive coordinator. You know what I mean? I mean, when you got to see the forest through the trees. And Wade Phillips, say what you want about him as a head coach, but as a defensive coordinator, Wade Phillips, to me, is the guy that can do something to frustrate Lamar Jackson, who looks like a video game right now.
The question is what he will do to make it more difficult for Jackson. What will it open up? Because Baltimore also has a solid running game. So you're going to have to give up something. You can't stop everything. You can take the Belichick approach and shut down what they do best, which would be Jackson. But then there'll be some running there, which then would indicate more of an under game.
I'm losing my marbles. Didn't that idiot fumble at the end of the game? Didn't they put it right in the a middle for the players?
Which one, on the Frisco game?
Frisco.
Yeah, Frisco. Yeah, no, it's like the second time. Well, actually, the dog still covered because Frisco was a 10-point favorite. And would they end up winning?
There were 10.5 at some point, I believe.
Yeah, there
the game
were.
Close 9.5. And then you get this gong show play, and everybody sitting there going, oh, my, can you imagine if you had a ticket?
Oh, yeah. No,
you're beside yourself.
There's 2 seconds to go, and they're going to run one more play, and how can you lose it? But we've seen it. We saw it in pros a few years ago with Kansas City and Washington, I believe, and we see it in college every year with I think it was Stanford and UCLA and Ohio State, Northwestern, whoever.
There's always one. It's like I don't think they found the guy that had the under ticket in the Baylor TCU game yet.
Right, and the funny part is. Yet it worked for Miami, New England last year. So
that's right. Jack, always great information. Have a great week. We look forward to chatting next week.
Talk to you next week. Thank you.
Betmaker, let's make some money tonight.
Well, that's the Betmaker Show for now. We publish multiple times each week. We'd like to thank you for listening. And if you liked what you heard, please take a moment to leave a rating and review or subscribe to our show feed. Or share our show with a friend or two and help us grow the show. We very much appreciate it. Visit us on the web at betmaker.com. And reminder to sign up for the newsletter. Thanks to our engineer, Darren Vandermolen, and producer, Mike Gallivan. The Betmaker Show is a production of Cardinal Marketing Incorporated. Betmaker is a registered trademark. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this content without the express written consent of Cardinal Marketing Incorporated is strictly prohibited.
The handicapping and sports odds information contained on this podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Please confirm the wagering regulations in your jurisdiction as they vary from state to state, province to province, and country to country. Using this information to contravene any law or statute is prohibited. The podcast is not associated with, nor is it endorsed by any professional or collegiate league, association, or team. This podcast does not target and is not intended for an audience under the age of 18. If you think that you have a gambling addiction, stop this podcast now and please seek help.
Gambling and betting on sports is a form of entertainment and should be about having a good time. But when done excessively, it may negatively affect other areas of a person's life, such as their physical and mental health, school or work performance, finances, and or interpersonal relationships. At betmaker.com and the Betmaker Show, we're concerned about the addiction that gambling may cause, and for this reason, we encourage everyone to practice responsible gambling. An approach to gambling that helps you ensure that it remains an enjoyable activity. Here are the main principles of responsible gambling. Don't think of gambling as a way to make money. Always gamble with money that you can afford to lose. Set limits and stick to them. Never chase losses. Don't gamble when you're depressed or upset, and create a healthy balance. Always be aware of how much time you spend gambling or thinking about gambling. And do not allow gambling to cause you to miss out on time with family and friends or time spent on other activities you enjoy. By following these guidelines, gambling can be a good time and great entertainment. If you feel at any time that your gambling is taking away from important areas of your life, is causing you stress or depression, or is leading to financial losses that are beyond your control, please reach out for help. Learn more at responsiblegambling.org.